The massive space station Haven Prime floated in the darkness between 3 dying star systems. Inside its central chamber, 7 different alien species sat around a glowing table. They had never looked so scared. Speaker Zaraka spread her golden feathers wide as she addressed the emergency council meeting. Her bird-like face showed worry that her people had not felt in 1,000 years. Friends, we are losing this war. The Vorthik have taken 12 worlds in the past month alone. The other council members shifted in their seats. Ambassador Fluid Singer of Depths, whose water-filled suit bubbled with nervous energy, spoke first. My people's computers have run the numbers. We have a 3% chance of survival. Maybe less. Hive Queen Thousand Whispers clicked her insect mandibles together. The sound echoed in the chamber like broken glass. My scouts report the same thing everywhere. The Vorthik eat our soldiers, then grow stronger. They adapt to every weapon we use. Nothing stops them. Around the table, representatives from the other species nodded in grim agreement. The crystal beings called the resonant hummed low, sad notes. The plant-like Verdani rustled their leaves in fear. Even the proud warrior race, known as the Ironclad, had stopped boasting about their military might. Old Namtar, the council's keeper of records, touched his wrinkled gray skin nervously. He had lived for 800 years and had never seen his people so helpless. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should consider the Forbidden's option. The room went silent. Everyone knew what he meant, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Zaraka folded her wings tight against her body. You mean the Terran files? Namtar nodded. The sealed records from the outer rim. The species we locked away. Fluid Singer of Depths made a gurgling sound of disbelief. Those are just stories. Myths about some primitive species that scared our ancestors. Are they? Namtar asked. He called up a holographic display that showed an old star map. A small section near the galaxy's edge was marked in red with warning symbols. This quarantine zone has been in place for 300 years. No ship goes in. No signals come out. Hive Queen Thousand Whispers leaned forward. What exactly did our ancestors find there? Namtar's hands shook as he accessed the restricted files. Ancient text appeared in the air, above the table. The species calls itself human. Initial contact was made by Survey Fleet 7 under Commander Vec VOR. They found a blue planet with 1 intelligent species. And, Zaraka prompted. Commander Vec VOR's report is ... disturbing. He wrote that humans were the most dangerous predators he had ever encountered. Not because of their technology or their physical strength, but because of how their minds worked. The crystal beings hummed anxiously. What do you mean? Namtar read from the ancient files. Humans fight wars for fun. They create stories about violence for entertainment. They have something called horror movies, where they watch other beings suffer and enjoy it. They laugh at death. They make jokes about pain. The room grew cold. These were concepts that most galactic species had evolved beyond millions of years ago. There's more, Namtar continued. Humans don't just kill their enemies. They make them afraid first. They use psychological torture. They turn their enemies' own minds against them. Commander Vec wrote that humans were the only species that had ever made him feel genuine terror. Ambassador Fluid Singer of Depths bubbled nervously. In his suit, that's impossible. Fear is a primitive response. No advanced species feels real fear anymore. Humans do, Namtar said quietly, and they use it as a weapon. Zaraka stood up and paced around the table. Her talons clicked on the metal floor. So our ancestors locked them away because they were too dangerous to contact. Not dangerous to us, Namtar corrected. Dangerous to everyone. The final report recommended permanent quarantine, because humans were classified as a level 9 extinction threat. The ironclad representative, a massive being covered in natural armor plates, laughed harshly. One primitive species scared our entire civilization? Namtar pulled up another file. 300 years ago, a Vorthic scouting force entered human space by accident. Only one ship returned. The survivor kept screaming about monsters that smile while they kill, before it died from fear-induced organ failure. The room fell silent again. Outside the station's windows, they could see the glow of burning worlds where the Vorthic continued their conquest. Hive Queen Thousand Whispers spoke first. The Vorthic have never retreated from anything. They consume everything in their path. Except humans, Namtar said softly. Zaraka stopped pacing. She looked at each council member in turn. Are we really considering this? Breaking a 300-year quarantine to ask for help from beings our ancestors were afraid to contact? What choice do we have? Asked the Verdani representative, his plant-like voice rustling with desperation. The Vorthic will reach our core worlds within 2 months. Our fleets can't stop them. Our weapons don't work. Our strategies fail. Ambassador Fluid Singer of Depths created nervous bubbles in his suit. What makes us think these humans will even help us? What if they decide we're their enemies too? Namtar closed the ancient files. Because according to these records, humans have one weakness. They can't resist helping others, even when it puts them in danger. It's called heroism, and their entire species suffers from it. The ironclad representative snorted. Heroism is a character flaw. Maybe, Namtar agreed. But it might be the character flaw that saves us all. Zaraka returned to her seat. She looked tired, older than her years. All in favor of breaking the Terra quarantine and requesting human assistance? One by one, each representative raised their hand, claw, tentacle, or limb. Even knowing the risks, even fearing what they might unleash, they had no choice. Motion. Past, Zaraka announced. May the galaxy forgive us for what we're about to do. The message was prepared carefully. It was sent on all frequencies toward the small blue planet on the galaxy's edge. A simple request for help from species that had been locked away for 3 centuries. None of them knew that on Earth, humans had been watching the war through their own hidden sensors for months. They had been waiting for the call, and they were already packing their ships for war. The message from space arrived at exactly 3:47 a.m. Earth time. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, the Global Defense Initiative headquarters came alive with activity. Alarms buzzed, screens lit up, and people ran through hallways that had been quiet moments before. Director Jake Morrison stood in his pajamas in the main command center, staring at the holographic message floating in front of him. He had gray hair and tired eyes from 20 years of military service, but right now he looked wide awake. Play it again. He told the technician. The alien voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded like a bird trying to talk. Unknown. Species designation human. The Galactic Council requires immediate military assistance. Compensation negotiable. Dr. Lisa Webb arrived 5 minutes later, still wearing her lab coat from the night shift. She was the world's leading expert on space signals, though until tonight she had never heard a real alien message. Her hands shook as she ran tests on the transmission. It's real, Jake, she said quietly. This is actually from outer space. The signal pattern matches nothing in our databases, but the physics are sound. Someone out there is talking to us. Jake rubbed his face. After 300 years of radio silence, they're asking for military help? Apparently so, Lisa said. She pulled up more data on her screen. The message includes technical specifications, star charts, weapon descriptions, and something called Vorthic Threat Assessment. It looks like there's a war going on out there. Chief Engineer Ben Clark jogged into the room, carrying a coffee cup and a tablet. He was younger than the others, but had designed most of Earth's space defense systems. I've been analyzing their data packet. These aliens are in serious trouble. They're fighting something called the Vorthik, and they're losing badly. Jake looked at the alien data scrolling across the screens. Pictures of strange creatures, star maps showing burning worlds, and weapon reports that made no sense. What? Are these Vorthik things? Ben swiped through the files. According to this, they're like living spaceships. They eat other species and get stronger. They adapt to any weapon used against them. The aliens have tried everything and nothing works. And they think we can help? Jake asked. Lisa pointed to another section of the data. Look at this. They sent us their historical files about Earth. Jake, they've been watching us for centuries. They know exactly what humans are capable of. The files were disturbing. Records of human wars, detailed studies of human psychology, and analysis of human entertainment. The aliens had cataloged everything from ancient battles to modern movies. They're particularly interested in our horror films, Lisa said, looking puzzled, and our military history. They seem fascinated by something they call human psychological warfare. Jake walked over to the big screen, showing a map of local space. Red dots marked Vorthik-controlled systems, growing larger every day. How long do we have? According to their projections, the entire galaxy falls in 2 months, Ben said. These aliens are desperate. They wouldn't break a 300-year quarantine unless they had no other choice. The room went quiet except for the humming of computers. Jake had fought in wars before, but never one in space. Never one where the entire galaxy was at stake. Get me Admiral Kate Sullivan, he said finally, and wake up the president. We're going to need authorization for this. Admiral Sullivan arrived within an hour. She was a tough woman who had commanded the space fleet for 10 years, though they had never fought anything more dangerous than pirates and smugglers. She read through the alien files with growing interest. These Vorthik sound nasty, she said, but their tactics are predictable. They rely on brute force and adaptation. They've never faced an enemy that thinks outside the box. You think we can beat them? Jake asked. Kate smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. I think we can introduce them to concepts they've never imagined. The question is, are we willing to show the galaxy what humans are really like? The next 12 hours were chaos. The president gave authorization. Military bases around the world went to high alert. The first contact fleet was assembled from Earth's best ships and crews. Captain Ryan Cooper took command of the assault carrier Retribution. He was a calm man who had served in every major conflict of the past decade. His ship carried fighters, marines, and weapons that most of the galaxy had never seen. Commander Amy Parker got the stealth destroyer Ghost Protocol. She was smaller than Cooper, but twice as dangerous, with a reputation for impossible missions and creative solutions. Her ship was designed to go places undetected and cause maximum confusion. Dr. Lisa Webb worked around the clock to understand alien technology and biology. The more she learned about the Vorthik, the more confident she became. They're perfect predators, she told the assembled fleet commanders. They've evolved to counter every form of attack their enemies can imagine. But they've never fought humans before. What makes us different? Captain Cooper asked. Lisa pulled up comparative data. Every other species in the galaxy thinks logically. They develop strategies based on statistics and probability. They fight wars to win efficiently. And humans? Commander Parker asked. Humans fight wars to make a point, Lisa said. We don't just want to win. We want our enemies to remember why they lost. We're the only species that has weaponized creativity, fear, and pure spite. Admiral Sullivan stood at the front of the briefing room. Behind her, A holographic display showed the alien fleet formations and Vorthic threat assessments. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to make first contact with an alien civilization. They've asked for our help because they think we're monsters. She paused and looked at each officer in turn. They're not wrong. We are monsters. But we're monsters who protect our friends and punish our enemies. The Vorthic are about to learn the difference. The fleet launched 3 days later. 12 ships carrying the best of humanity's military might, heading toward a war they had been watching from the shadows for months. As Earth fell behind them, Captain Cooper opened a channel to the other ships. All vessels, this is retribution. Remember, we're not just representing Earth out there. We're showing the galaxy what happens when you mess with species under human protection. Commander Parker's voice came back over the radio, cheerful and deadly. Copy that, Ryan. Let's go teach some aliens about human hospitality. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading toward Haven Prime and a destiny that none of them could fully imagine. The human fleet arrived at Haven Prime Station like ghosts emerging from the darkness. One moment the space around the station was empty. The next moment 12 ships appeared without warning. The alien sensors had detected nothing until the humans wanted to be seen. Speaker Zaraka stood at the observation deck, her golden feathers trembling as she watched the human vessels approach. They were unlike anything in the galactic database. The ships seemed to be alive, their hulls shifting and changing color like breathing skin. Strange symbols glowed along their sides, and their engines left trails of light that looked like flowing blood. Are those ships or creatures? Asked Ambassador Fluid Singer of Depths, his water suit bubbling with nervous energy. Both, whispered old Namtar, checking his ancient files. The records say humans blur the line between technology and biology. They grow their machines like plants and program them like pets. The largest human ship, the UES Defiance, docked with Haven Prime's main port. The other vessels took defensive positions around the station, moving with a grace that made the aliens uncomfortable. These were not the clumsy, primitive ships they had expected. Captain Ryan Cooper was the first human to step onto the station. He was tall and calm, wearing a uniform that was simple but somehow threatening. His eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail of the alien architecture and the positions of security guards. Behind him came Admiral Kate Sullivan, a woman whose smile never reached her eyes. She walked like a predator, confident and relaxed, but ready to strike at any moment. The aliens instinctively backed away from her. "Welcome to Haven Prime," Speaker Zarakal said in careful English. "We are grateful you answered our call for help." "We're here to help," Captain Cooper replied, his voice steady and polite. "Show us the enemy." The War Council meeting was held in the station's main conference room. The human delegation sat on one side of the table, facing 7 different alien species. The contrast was striking. The aliens were colorful and diverse, while the humans looked almost plain in comparison. But something about the humans made the room feel smaller and more dangerous. Admiral Sullivan listened politely as each alien species described their battles with the Vorthic. They spoke of statistical analysis, resource management, and evolutionary advantages. They showed charts and graphs proving that victory was mathematically impossible. "So you've tried conventional warfare," Sullivan said when they finished. "What? About unconventional approaches?" Hive Queen Thousand Whispers clicked her mandibles in confusion. "What do you mean by unconventional?" Commander Amy Parker, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. "Have you tried making them afraid?" The aliens looked at each other in puzzlement. Ambassador Fluid Singer of Depths spoke first. "Fear is a primitive survival response. Advanced species evolved beyond such base emotions millions of years ago." "But the Vorthic still feel fear, right?" Parker asked. "They're biological creatures?" Yes, admitted the Verdani representative, his plant-like voice rustling with uncertainty. But fear serves no tactical purpose in modern warfare. Captain. Cooper and Admiral Sullivan exchanged glances. Something passed between them that the aliens couldn't understand, a shared knowledge that made them both smile in a way that was not entirely pleasant. Fear is a weapon, Sullivan said simply. One you've never learned to use. The aliens were horrified when the humans outlined their strategy. Instead of meeting the Vorthik in direct combat, they proposed something called psychological warfare. They wanted to attack the enemy's mind before attacking their bodies. You want to drive them insane? Zaraka asked, her feathers ruffling with distress. We want to make them understand that fighting humans is a mistake they'll regret, Cooper explained. The Vorthik adapt to physical attacks. But can they adapt to concepts they've never encountered? Dr. Lisa Webb, who had joined the fleet as Chief Science Officer, pulled up holographic displays showing human battle doctrine. The aliens stared in growing horror at concepts like false flag operations, mimetic warfare, and selective breeding of terror. Your species fights wars. By trying to minimize casualties, Webb explained. We fight wars by maximizing psychological impact. We don't just want to win. We want our enemies to surrender before the battle even begins. The ironclad representative, whose people prided themselves on warrior traditions, spoke up. This is not honorable combat. This is cruelty. Parker laughed, and the sound made several aliens flinch. Honor is a luxury for species that can afford to lose. We can't afford to lose, so we fight to win by any means necessary. In the station's archives, Namtar was reviewing the sealed human files with growing dread. The more he read, the more he understood what they had unleashed. The ancient records contained reports that had been classified for good reason. Humans didn't just fight wars. They turned warfare into an art form. They studied their enemies not just to defeat them, but to understand exactly how to cause maximum psychological damage. They had developed weapons designed not to kill, but to terrorize. They've created an entire industry around fictional violence. Namtar muttered to himself, reading about human entertainment. They watch staged battles for fun. They tell stories about monsters and demons, then laugh at them. The most disturbing discovery was in the psychological profiles. Humans possessed something called empathy, the ability to understand exactly how their enemies felt. But instead of using this knowledge for compassion, they weaponized it. They knew precisely which fears would be most effective against each species. Back in the conference room, the War Council was reaching a decision. The alien species were terrified of the human approach to warfare, but they were more terrified of the Vorthik. We will provide you with complete intelligence on Vorthik biology and tactics, Zaraka announced. Our combined fleets will follow. Your strategic command, Admiral Sullivan nodded. Good, but understand this. Once we start this war, we finish it our way. No rules of engagement, no limitations on tactics, no mercy for the enemy. What about prisoners? Asked the Celestin. Representative. We'll take prisoners, Cooper said, but not to be kind. We'll take them to send a message. As the meeting broke up, the aliens whispered among themselves in their native languages. They had asked for help, and help was coming. But they were beginning to understand that they had unleashed something that might be worse than the Vorthik. Commander Parker stayed behind as the others left. She approached Speaker Zaraka with a smile that was almost friendly. Don't worry, she said softly. We're the good guys. We're here to protect you. And if we weren't? Zaraka asked, unable to stop herself. Parker's smile widened. Then you'd already be dead, and you'd never have seen us coming. The human fleet departed Haven Prime 12 hours later, heading toward the Rigel sector where the Vorthik were consuming their latest conquest. The alien ships followed, their crews wondering if they had made a terrible mistake. In the depths of space, the Vorthic hive minds detected the approaching fleet. Their bioships prepared for another easy victory, confident in their ability to adapt to any threat. They had no idea that adaptation would not save them from what was coming. The humans were bringing something new to the galaxy, the concept of making war personal. The combined fleet arrived at the Kepler 442 system to find horror beyond imagination. The industrial world of New Harmony was half consumed, its cities being slowly digested by massive bioships that looked like floating stomachs. Smaller Vorthic creatures swarmed over the planet's surface, converting everything they touched into more of themselves. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UEC Defiance, watching the destruction through the main screen. The alien commanders had gathered around her, expecting to see human shock or anger. Instead, they saw something that frightened them more: clinical interest. "Fascinating," Dr. Webb said, studying the enemy fleet. "They're even more adaptable than the reports suggested. Look how they've modified themselves just in the past hour." The Vorthic bioships were changing as they watched. Some grew thicker, armor after detecting the incoming fleet's weapons. Others sprouted new appendages designed to counter specific alien technologies. It was like watching evolution happen in fast motion. Speaker Zaraka's feathers trembled with despair. "You see? They adapt to everything. We cannot surprise them." "You can't surprise them," Captain Cooper corrected from his ship. "We haven't tried yet." The alien fleet commanders waited for the humans to attack the main Vorthic force. That was how every battle in this war had been fought: direct confrontation, strength against strength, until the Vorthic adapted and won. Instead, Commander Parker's stealth ships simply vanished. Where did they go? Hive Queen Thousand Whispers clicked nervously. "Hunting," Admiral Sullivan said with satisfaction. Parker's Ghost, Protocol, and its sister ships had slipped past the main battle lines using technology the aliens didn't understand. While the Vorthic focused on the large fleet, the human stealth vessels struck at targets no one had thought to protect. The first target was a Vorthic nursery ship, hidden behind the planet's moon. The creature was massive, but defenseless, designed only to breed new warriors. Parker's ships didn't destroy it. They infected it. "Broadcasting Package 1, Parker reported over the radio, her voice calm and professional. The package was something Dr. Webb had designed specifically for this mission. It looked like a normal data transmission, the kind of communication the Vorthic absorbed and processed automatically. But hidden inside was something no Vorthic had ever experienced: human entertainment. Specifically, horror movies. The nursery ship consumed the transmission eagerly, processing the information to understand its enemies better. But horror movies weren't information, they were experiences. Stories designed to create fear, suspense, and dread in the viewer. The Vorthic bioship began to convulse. Its biological computers tried to process images of monsters, murderers, and things that went bump in the night. For a species that had never felt genuine fear, the experience was overwhelming. "Target 1 is having what humans call a nervous breakdown," Parker reported cheerfully. Moving to Target 2. The second strike hit a Vorthic communication hub. This time, the humans broadcast heavy metal music mixed with recorded human laughter. The combination of aggressive sound and expressions of joy at violence created something the Vorthic couldn't understand or adapt to. Back at the main fleet, the alien commanders watched in amazement as Vorthic bioships began attacking each other. The creatures that had been perfectly coordinated moments before were now thrashing wildly, their hive-mind connection breaking down. "What did you do to them?" Ambassador Fluid Singer of Depths asked, his water suit bubbling with confusion. "We introduced them to human culture," Dr. Webb explained. "The Vorthic process all information as potential food or threat assessment. But human entertainment isn't information. It's emotional manipulation designed to trigger specific psychological responses. Captain Cooper's assault carrier moved into position above the planet. Instead of attacking the bioships directly, he began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was simple and delivered in a calm, friendly tone. Attention, Vorthic forces. This is Captain Ryan Cooper of the human vessel Retribution. We know you can understand our language, and we know you're listening. We have a message for you. The Vorthic bioships paused their feeding, confused by the direct communication. In their experience, prey didn't talk to predators. They certainly didn't introduce themselves. We've been studying your species for quite some time, Cooper continued, conversationally. We know how you breed, how you think, and how you die. We know where your home worlds are, and we know where you keep your young. The tone was polite, almost friendly, but something about it made the alien commanders uncomfortable. Zaraka realized that Cooper was smiling as he spoke. Here's what's going to happen, the human captain continued. You're going to stop eating our friend's planet. You're going to leave this system, and you're going to spread the word to every Vorthic in the galaxy that humans are now involved in this war. A Vorthic bioship, larger than the others, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The aliens' translation computers identified it as a response. We do not fear you, small creatures. We have adapted to every weapon your allies possess. We will adapt to yours as well. Cooper's smile widened. That's the thing about humans. We're not really a weapon. We're more like a force of nature. You can't adapt to a hurricane, friend. You can only try to survive it. The human fleet began its real attack then, but it wasn't like any battle the aliens had ever seen. Instead of trying to destroy the Vorthic ships, they seemed to be playing with them. Fighter craft led by ace pilot Jenny Walsh darted between the bioships, broadcasting human children's songs and nursery rhymes. The Vorthic tried to process the innocent melodies and found themselves confused by concepts like play and childhood innocence. Marine units dropped onto the planet's surface, but instead of engaging in direct combat, they began setting up speakers that broadcast human comedy shows. Vorthic ground forces found themselves trying to process something called stand-up comedy, humans talking about their fears and failures, and somehow finding them amusing. The psychological warfare was working better than anyone had imagined. The Vorthic, who had evolved to counter every form of physical attack, had no defense against ideas they couldn't understand. But the masterstroke came when Dr. Webb deployed her final weapon. Human empathy turned inside out. Broadcasting message. Package 7, she announced. This transmission was different. Instead of entertainment or music, it contained something much more dangerous, human understanding. The message was a detailed analysis of Vorthic psychology, explaining exactly how their minds worked and why they were so afraid of death and pain. But the cruel twist was that it was delivered as a bedtime story, in the gentle voice of a human mother reading to her child. The effect on the Vorthic was devastating. To have their deepest fears analyzed and explained in terms of comfort and nurturing broke something fundamental in their psychological structure. They couldn't process the idea of creatures who understood their terror and found it ... cute. Vorthic fleet began to retreat, not strategically, but in pure panic. Bioships crashed into each other in their haste to escape. The perfectly coordinated hive mind collapsed into individual terror. They're running, Zaraka whispered in amazement. There. Learning, Admiral Sullivan corrected. This is just the first lesson. As the last Vorthic ship fled the system, Captain Cooper opened a final channel. His voice followed them into space, calm and patient. Tell your friends we'll be seeing them soon. And remember, we know where you live. The human fleet regrouped around the damaged planet, already preparing for the next phase of the war. The aliens watched them work with a mixture of gratitude and growing dread. They had asked for help defeating monsters. They were beginning to realize they had hired bigger monsters to do it. News of the human victory at Kepler 442 spread through Vorthic space faster than their ships could flee. For the first time in their species' history, the Vorthic felt something they had never experienced before: genuine terror of another species. Galactic Council watched from Haven Prime as 3 more Vorthic fleets abandoned their conquests and retreated toward their home systems. Worlds that had been under siege for months were suddenly free as the bioships fled without explanation. "They're not just retreating," reported Hive Queen Thousand Whispers, her mandibles clicking with amazement. "They're running. My scouts say some Vorthic ships are destroying their own breeding facilities rather than risk humans finding them." Admiral Sullivan stood in the council chamber, reviewing tactical reports with the satisfaction of a job well done. The alien representatives watched her with expressions that mixed gratitude with growing unease. "Phase 1 is complete," she announced. "The Vorthic now understand that humans exist and that we fight differently than anyone they've encountered. Phase 2 begins now." Speaker Zaraka shifted nervously on her perch. "What is Phase 2? Sullivan's smile was not reassuring. "We teach them that running away from humans only makes the game more interesting." The combined fleet moved toward the Vorthic home systems like a storm gathering strength. But the humans didn't attack immediately. Instead, they did something that confused both their allies and their enemies. They waited. Captain Cooper positioned his ships just outside Vorthic space and began broadcasting on all frequencies. Not threats or demands, but something much more unsettling: casual conversation. "Good morning, Vorthic friends," he said cheerfully, as if greeting neighbors over a backyard fence. "This is Captain Cooper again. Beautiful day for a war, isn't it? We thought we'd drop by your neighborhood and see how you're doing." The Vorthic response was immediate and panicked. Bioships that had been stationed around their outer worlds fled deeper into their territory. Defense fleets that had never retreated from anything pulled back toward their core systems. "We're not even attacking them," observed Commander Parker, watching enemy movements on her tactical display. "We're just talking, and they're terrified." Dr. Webb monitored Vorthic communications from her science station. "Their command structure is breaking down. Individual ships are disobeying orders. Some are even attacking their own commanders." "Excellent," Sullivan said with approval. "Fear is spreading faster than we could ever travel. They're doing our job for us." The humans spent 2 weeks just sitting at the edge of Vorthic space, broadcasting random messages. Sometimes Cooper read poetry. Other times Parker told jokes. Dr. Webb gave lectures about human history, focusing on particularly creative military victories. The psychological pressure was overwhelming. The Vorthic had never faced an enemy that played with them. Every species they had encountered either fought or fled. Humans did neither. They simply existed nearby, like a constant threat that never quite materialized. Then came the breakthrough the humans had been waiting for. Single Vorthic bioship approached under a flag of truce. The creature was massive, but moved hesitantly, broadcasting surrender codes that hadn't been used in Vorthic history for millions of years. "Humans," the ship transmitted, "we wish to negotiate." Admiral Sullivan allowed herself a small smile. "Bring them aboard the Defiance. Let's hear what they have to say." The Vorthic ambassador was unlike anything the aliens had seen before. Where? Other Vorthic were confident predators. This one was a nervous wreck. Its biomechanical body twitched with stress, and its communication patterns were fragmented with fear. "Great humans," it said, the translation making its voice sound broken. "The Vorthic Collective wishes to discuss terms of surrender." The alien council members stared in shock. The Vorthic had never surrendered to anyone. They conquered or died, There was no middle ground in their psychology? Surrender? Captain Cooper asked, sounding genuinely curious. But we haven't even started fighting yet. The Vorthic ambassador convulsed with terror. Your psychological attacks have broken our coordination. Our ships attack each other. Our breeding pools produce offspring that scream in languages we do not understand. You have infected our very thoughts with concepts we cannot process. Dr. Webb leaned forward with scientific interest. Which concepts specifically? Hope, the ambassador whispered. You broadcast stories about creatures overcoming impossible odds through friendship and determination. Our young now refuse to consume enemy species because they want to make friends with them. This is not Vorthic behavior. Commander Parker tried not to laugh. You're telling us that our children's movies broke your war machine? And your music, the ambassador continued desperately. Songs about love, loss, and finding meaning in existence. Our warriors listen to these transmissions and begin questioning the purpose of conquest. Some have even started creating what you call art instead of consuming biomass. The humans exchanged glances. They had expected their psychological warfare to be effective, but this was beyond their wildest predictions. What exactly are you offering? Admiral Sullivan asked. The Vorthic ambassador prostrated itself as much as its alien anatomy allowed. Complete withdrawal from all contested systems. Reparations to damaged worlds. A permanent peace treaty. Anything you desire, as long as you promise to stop broadcasting your cultural materials into our space. Speaker Zaraka found her voice. You're afraid of human entertainment? We are afraid of human everything, the ambassador admitted. Your species turns warfare into play, suffering into comedy, and fear into stories you tell your children for. Fun. You are the most terrifying creatures in the galaxy, because you enjoy things that should cause madness. Captain Cooper stood up and walked around the trembling alien. Here's our counteroffer. The Vorthic will withdraw from all occupied systems immediately. You'll help rebuild the worlds you damaged. And in exchange, we'll establish cultural exchange programs between our species. The ambassador made a sound like breaking glass. Cultural exchange? We'll teach you about human art, music, and literature, Dr. Webb added helpfully. Think of it as rehabilitation therapy. And if we refuse? The ambassador asked weakly. Admiral Sullivan's smile was sharp as a blade. Then we'll visit your home world and throw the biggest party in galactic history. We'll bring our best comedians, our loudest musicians, and our most creative storytellers. We'll teach your entire species how to laugh. The threat was so absurd that it took a moment for its implications to sink in. The Vorthic had spent millions of years perfecting themselves as the ultimate predators. The idea of being transformed into creatures that appreciated humor was more terrifying than extinction. We accept your terms, the ambassador said quickly. Complete surrender. Cultural exchange. Rehabilitation. Anything but the party. The war was over. Not through conquest or destruction, but through something unprecedented in galactic history. Voluntary. Surrender by a species that had never been defeated. As the Vorthic ambassador fled back to its fleet, the alien council members sat in stunned silence. They had witnessed something impossible, the end of an unwinnable war without firing a shot. Is it really over? Zaraka asked quietly. For now, Sullivan replied. The Vorthic will honor the agreement because they're too scared to break it. And honestly, cultural exchange might be good for them. A little human influence could turn them into productive galactic citizens. Namtar, who had been reviewing files throughout the meeting, looked up with troubled eyes. Admiral Sullivan, what happens now? Will humanity join the Galactic Council as a member species? Sullivan considered the question carefully. That depends. Are you sure you want us as neighbors? The room fell silent as the aliens contemplated the implications. They had solved their Vorthic problem, But now they faced a new question. What do you do when the monsters you hired to protect you decide to stick around? Commander Parker broke the tension with a cheerful announcement. Don't worry, everyone. We're the good guys, remember? We only get creative with our enemies. She paused, and her smile became slightly predatory. Just make sure you stay friends. The human fleet departed Vorthix space a week later, leaving behind a galaxy that would never be quite the same. The Vorthix began their slow transformation from galactic predators to nervous neighbors. The other species started reviewing their own cultural practices, wondering what humans might think of them out. And on Earth, Director Jake Morrison received a simple message from Admiral Sullivan. Mission accomplished. The galaxy is safe. P.S. We might want to start working on our diplomatic skills. I think we scared our new friends almost as much as our enemies. The age of human isolation was over. The galaxy had learned that there were worse things than the Vorthix in the darkness, between stars. But they had also learned that sometimes the scariest monsters were the ones who smiled when they saved you.